Before I start, I want to read something, if I may. We've all got our different thoughts on things, and listening to gospel today too, this brought to mind this, so I knew it was in this book I've got. So I'd like to read it out. It's from the seer, Medjigore, who's one of the visionaries. Okay? Now this is not a message from our Blessed Mother, this is a message strictly from Medjigore's heart. I think it's very important that we understand that we're all sinners and we're all struggling in this confusing world. And I thought this was appropriate as it came from her, from Medjigore. Okay. The seer, Medjigore, from Medjigore, makes a wide statement about the Pope. We're talking about Pope Francis. She says, "I must tell you something I have in my heart. I hear so many pilgrims. Pope John Paul II was a brave pope. Pope Benedict less. From Pope Francis, I like it. I do not like it." There's a pause here. "You must love him." And in her style of talk, because Pope is Pope, he is our Pope. It is our duty to pray for him. We don't know everything he carries on his back. We only know how to judge, but not how to pray. Of course, that's what Our Lady is asking us to do, to pray, pray, pray. And with our prayer, help, I believe with all my heart, the Holy Spirit always gives us a Pope we need. When we needed a Pope like John Paul II, it was him. And when we needed a Pope like Benedict, it was him. And now we need a Pope, Francis, and that's him. So, we must not judge, we must pray to help him. We are used to commenting everything because we think we know everything, but we don't know everything. Pray, pray, pray. That's what Our Lady asks us. So, thanks for bearing with that little bit for me. I think it was important. For some reason, that wasn't part of my planned talk, but when I received that, I thought it was necessary. And so before I slip into hearing these bits and pieces, this is a message of Our Lady's from 1986, in May 1986, and it applies to me at the moment. Dear children, you are responsible for the messages. The source of grace is here, but you, dear children, are vehicles transmitting the gifts. Therefore, dear children, I am calling you to work responsibly. Everybody will be responsible according to his own measure. Dear children, I am calling you to give the gifts to others with love and not to keep it for yourselves. Hence, the reason I felt the need to do this. So we'll move on now. And so those that don't know where Medjigore is, there's Italy there, of course, and Bosnia's over here, and Medjigore is here. When I travelled to Rome, I went to Assisi Rome. We eventually got to Split, and then down to the village of Medjigore. And all these lovely people from all over the place that I got to know. This lady here is my sister that went with me. And this gentleman here, he's a farmer up from Albury, Wodonga. He's become a very close friend and we've been keeping in contact. He was struggling before he came to Medjigore. To quote, he says, "Now I am a different man." So he's got to tell all his drinking buddies that. And now we're going into the video, which is the 6 minutes, because I think this will help.
I looked at this side building right off of St. James, where you walk through the thing, and I said, those cannot be all confessionals. And Jason says, yeah, those are all confessions. And they were filled.
Yeah.
They were filled. Yeah. What is happening here? Mary, the nurse, is administering the penicillin.
Wow.
And she's giving us and taking us to the divine physician who's in that confessional with the priest. And there is the therapy. That is the medicine.
Yes.
And it all is then enables you through that sacrament of confession to go receive the actual grace in Holy Communion. And when I saw these confessions here, I was like, holy cow, this is like nothing I've ever seen. So I started hearing confessions. And as I started hearing confessions, all the people that are here that are just experiencing such brokenness, such lack of peace in their lives, have responded as Mary's message said. Thank you for responding. All those people, and if you at home have not been, Lord, God bless you, because we know that not everybody has the means or the ability or the time to be able to come here. But if you do, and you have the option between coming here or other places, please pray. Because as you come here, as Mary said, to those who have responded to this call, I saw it in the confessional, and I saw that healing going on. There is something special, and there is a grace here that is being administered through this nurse, our mother, from the divine physician.
And then Father Chris talks about after leaving the confessional, after hearing all the confessions, he comes out and he sees a young woman from the Ukraine across the way, and something in her eyes draws him to her. And he asks how she's doing, and she's saying to him that she just wants to end her life.
You have so much to live for. You're beautiful. You speak excellent English. And talk about an experience of Medjigore. She looks at me and she says, I don't know how to speak English.
She was perfect, and she understood everything that he was saying.
She understood, and her English was perfect, and she said, Father, I don't speak English.
Oh, for heaven's
She said, I
sake.
don't speak English. That's a Medjugorje
That's a
experience.
Medjugorje
And
Things
experience.
like that happen every day. This is just like
And so I'm telling this to Father Seraphim and Jason. After the Eucharistic adoration here, after I just watched 50,000 people hungry before the Blessed Sacrament, at the end of that holy hour, I was so moved. I was so choked up. I couldn't explain to them. I couldn't find the words.
And I'm going to tell on him. He was crying. You're sobbing.
I was like, it was so profound, that experience. And then
Experience. Father Chris is overwhelmed, being obviously very moved. Father Seraphim's on one side of me, Father Chris on the other side, and all of a sudden, a woman is escorting a man in his mid-20s, probably. A minor order of exorcism from when he was ordained. And we sit the man down, and the first thing that he says, Kathy, I don't believe in God. And I just want to kill myself. I want to kill myself. I just want to take my life. I don't want to live anymore. So again, of all the people to be led to, they're led right to a priest and a brother who's working with him on a book that is dealing with the aftermath of suicide. And
which comes from a lack of God in our society.
And the other thing is, I don't believe in God. He's this young man. When we have a lack of God, the human heart, as St. Augustine tells us, is it longs for God. It's created for God, and it's not satisfied until it rests in God. Well, if it's not resting in God where we receive peace, it's empty. There's a vacuum. So it's going to start seeking for other things. And that's where people get into drugs and alcohol and massive forms of entertainment and pornography, because the human heart is longing to be fulfilled. It's longing for love. And when we take God away, who is love, there is a vacuum. The innate interior desire for God is still there. We start to fill it with other things.
Sorry to interrupt, but Thomas Aquinas makes that very clear. He says the way we are created, we are all seeking to be joyful, to find that peace. If we do not find it in God, we will seek it in carnal areas.
Nice.
And this is where we lose our way. And this is what happened to this young man.
Wow.
And he sits down and we start to pray with him, and Father Seraphim leads him through some prayers, some divine mercy prayers as well, with the mercy of God. We invited Our Lady to be present, of course. And we spent probably about 45 minutes with this young man. And it was absolutely amazing. Now, oftentimes miracles can't happen in an instant. With most of us in most situations with transformation, it takes place over time. It can be a combination of both as well. But as this young man sat down and we prayed, and you can truly, tangibly, palpably feel the Holy Spirit present with us, we saw a transformation come over this young man's whole entire
He started
being.
laughing. He started laughing.
He went from angry, you could see that he was angry, hurt, rebellious,
Smiling.
to refusing anything with God, adamantly, vehemently saying, I don't believe in God, I don't believe in Jesus, I don't believe in any of this, to him saying, yes, I want Jesus. I believe Jesus is my Lord and Savior. I believe that he can come into my life and heal me. I reject Satan. And within 45 minutes, his whole entire demeanor and disposition, you saw a transformation in the face and the whole entire body comportment of this man. You saw the message of Medjigore, Our Lady Queen of Peace, present in this man.
The little microcosm of the whole message of Medjigorje right there in this 2-hour period between the girl, between the Eucharistic adoration, and then this young man.
Wow.
We saw the whole essence of Medjugorje wrapped up in a microcosm in that first night. That was our first night. That was our first night.
Welcome to Medjugorje, Father Chris.
Mary didn't waste any time.
None.
She didn't even wait to the end where usually you have the big grand finale. She hit us right out of the gate. She hit us right.
The young man, the priest, the guy that we're talking about, that's where I was. A long time ago, of course, and now I'm here. I've got Jesus, especially in the Blessed Sacrament. And that's what we have to focus on. Now here is a picture outside the church with my sister. Just a quick snap to give you an idea. And here is what it's like daily, 5 to 6 masses a day. Very hard to find a seat sometimes. So there's a lot of standing. There are people who would be kneeling and standing, and it's just overwhelming, the amount of prayer and reverence in all of that. In this particular shot, I'm not snapping it very well with just my old phone, but believe me when I say that I was just overwhelmed, as my sister was, the amount of young people, teens and 20s that were visiting the time we're in April and experiencing this on a daily basis, as well as going to see the particular sites that are of importance. That's obviously a statue of Our Lady of Lourdes, which is always in that corner in the Church of Medjigorje. People are constantly praying around that, and they have the candles lit, which is really lovely. This is the beginning of the Mass. The priest there is Father Peter from Heathcote, and his colleagues, his fellow priests. It's not a priest at the back, by the way, that's a statue of St. James, because it's St. James's parish. And the priest over in the corner there is the, not sure what his position's called, but he's the head priest there in Medjigorje. He looks after things there and that side of things. The Franciscans look after everything else outside. It just happens when I took this shot, this young man here happens to be in the picture. But he's a man of importance, and I hadn't thought about this till last night, and I do hear from him now. This man was like away from God in the most worst way. And he's done a complete turnaround. He was a male prostitute, and is a gay man. We've become friends, we keep in touch. He's a really beautiful person. He had a conversion I won't go into that, it's not my story, quite mammoth. And he greets people that come over to Medjigore that are searching for God and that living that way of life. And he's been such a wonderful thing for everybody because he's able to bring them in and talk to them and help them and guide them. And he's a lovely Irish man. Now this is at night adoration in Medjigore, and of course the same here when Father sets up for adoration. We put the monstrance on the altar, and we spend a lot of quiet time, and that's always packed. I'm going to try to hold myself together to talk about this because it's of importance, and I don't think Our Lady would want me to not go ahead. I don't particularly care if anything I say in this video people don't believe. That's okay, and I'm not angry about that at all. As we're talking about in the gospel today, about love. We have to love each other from wherever we come from, and we have to spread that love. Try to imagine the video back a bit with all the crowded people, but at a night time instead of a daytime. We've all got our parkas and our beanies, and trust me, it's really packed. And I've been to some adorations, and I really wanted to go to adoration because we're getting close to coming home. And so I planned with my sister to meet her there. She was doing other things, and I came onto the left side of the church and she came onto the right, and as far as we could get was just in the doors. And I wasn't angry with God, but I was a little bit upset that I couldn't be kneeling in front of the altar, because I always like to kneel before the King of Kings. And so as I turned around to look at the monstrance going on, I saw a gap where I was at the door, right to almost the centre of the church, close to the altar, and I couldn't believe it because it was packed and there was this narrow gap, and I took the gap and headed towards the monstrance. Couldn't believe I got through, and I sat down, and then I knelt down. There was no seats in the end anyway, and people have little stools, as you know, if you've been to other Marian shrines and places of such, they have lots of little seats and cushions to kneel on, and I just had my yellow woolen hat, and I threw that down and kneeled on that.
A little bit louder, please, Patrick.
Okay, I'll do my best. And so I might get someone to sneak off and get me a glass of water though, if they could. So I knelt down, and as I did, I'm praying to the Lord, and I turned to the right of myself, and I saw this beautiful young lady, perhaps about 20. And then I realised very quickly I couldn't look at her because two things were going on. One was everybody was rugged up like the billion to keep warm, and this lady had the most beautiful apricot pinkish dress, which was quite of one piece and very fine. It didn't suit the time that we're there.
Excuse me.
But also I felt particularly unworthy. Humanly speaking, I was trying to look at her, but I felt this humanly unworthiness, and I was struggling with this. So I went back into prayer, and after adoration, when Father raised the monstrance to bless us all, as the priests always do, it's a great blessing from Christ through the priest. I turned around to look at this young lady, and I felt the call, and she beckoned me towards her, so I went over wondering, what's this all about? Still being my old self, but this feeling was different. And she put her hands out to me like that. And then I put my hands like that, and I held this young girl. And the next minute, I'm getting this massive big sign of the cross. And that had finished. I sort of backed away. I couldn't see her face. No matter what I did, I can't remember her face. I can only remember a smile. It was like a smile, someone smiling to a child. I bent down to get my hat, and as I got up and turned around, I was thinking humanly to go over and say, "Who are you? How you going?" sort of stuff. And then I was just watching her melt into this crowd, which was packed. And my sister was on the other side of the doors, just inside. And she witnesses to me there was nobody there. She couldn't see them. She said, "Nobody would have been dressed like that and got through, Pat." She said, "I'm not disbelieving you, but I'm telling you, Patrick, that she wasn't there." So that was my experience with the that particular night, and I've had to deal with it for a while and come to my own conclusion. I think I got to say thank you. So I thank our Blessed Mother for that. We'll move on for a little bit. Now that's a picture just outside of the hotel I was staying at. It gives a bit of an overview of the type of buildings that you get. And this is very significant because this spot here is in the vicinity of where the visionaries first saw Our Lady. From the bottom of the hill. And one of the visionaries constantly every month was there having apparitions of Our Lady. That was Medjigore. Those apparitions have ceased now, and she'll only have apparitions on her birthday, the 18th of March. Apparently, Our Lady told her that the 18th of March she's to keep in mind because it's a significant date. My sister and I heading to Apparition Hill, to the back way in the countryside, just outside the parish church. And here we arrive at a different time via one of those taxis. I'm not sure, Sister Margaret, somebody was talking about taxis yesterday night. But you take your life in your hands, but it's only $5 no matter where you go, €5. So you don't think about it, you just get in the taxi, you give them $5 and they'll take you where you like. Apparition Hill is significant because that's where the permanent sign, if you believe in these things, as I do, that's where the permanent sign's going to be left after the apparitions cease, and they are going to cease. In fact, I believe they're winding down now because it's getting less and less as far as Our Lady appearing to the young adults now. This is the pinnacle of the time when you're climbing Cross Mountain. It's 580 metres high, steep and rocky. The cross itself was built in, which you'll see shortly, in 1933, and it was erected by the villagers in recognition of Christ the King. And you have to keep in mind that they were going through tough times them days. It was a communist country when the apparitions first started, and to get that cross up there, that's it there. The villagers, men and women and children, built that cross by carrying sand and cement bags and whatnot up 580 metres to the top of the rocky mountain to build that, to give thanks to God and their pens too. Quite incredible, isn't it? The plaque there is for a special priest that died in 2000, Father Slavko Bavrik. And you mentioned his name there and everybody sort of just cries. Father Slavko was one of the first priests to believe the visionaries when they were children that this was happening. And he was a great inspiration to them and to everybody, and he gave his whole life for the village and that message. He was a Franciscan, you know, they wear the brown habits and that. When he died on that spot which is close to the cross, not quite made it. Every day of his life he walked that mountain every morning and came back down and went on with his daily chores and life and prayer. And he died on that spot. Now it is recorded that Our Lady appeared to the visionaries on the usual time the next night and told the visionaries that Father Slavko Bavrik, their brother, is with her and Jesus in heaven. Where the cross is, but I felt very called to move away from the cross and go on my own for some quiet prayer and some reflection of my journey. And I moved up to the top of that pole, and all it is a pole with a little thing spinning. It's to do with the weather. Okay? So this is the view from the top. See the storm coming in. Just take a close look as we had the hail and stuff coming. See two flashes of light. And that whole cloud just covered the top of Cross Mountain. My intention was just to look, try and get a panoramic view of the area, of the village and where the cross is, and I end up back at the pole. So I myself experienced that with the light, which we all experienced as witness to that. And the most astonishing thing was when I got the print of the light. This is what I got. And I got rays of light. And that's what I saw. That's what everybody saw. But we're all too wound up with, as you are, with all the excitement and everything happening.
Pat, how many witnesses saw that on the hill?
Well, there was 27 of us from the pilgrimage, and there was lots of people I didn't count that were there at the same time. Wouldn't be honest to give a figure, but it'd have to be around 50 or 60 people wandering around, and still more people coming up. And that's what we saw. Now, in the gracious time that Joe was giving me to help put things together, because I'm not good at doing anything technical like this, he went looking to see if there was anything recorded anywhere in anything in regards to this phenomenon. And this popped up, and that's a message from Vishka, one of the visionaries, in August 82, end of 82. Ivan, one of the visionaries, is on the Hill of Apparitions with his friends, which probably would have been the other visionaries because there were 6. The Virgin appears to him a young man then, a teenager. Now I am going to give you a sign in order to strengthen your faith. And they see two rays of light, one on the church and the other on the cross. Well, where the main light is there, that's where the church is over there, because we correlated that. Well, I didn't, Joe did, with all computer stuff and satellite stuff, and we worked out, and of course that's pretty obvious where that beam's coming down. So I have to take that as a grace. I have to take it that in order to believe that it's helped to help me strengthen my faith and to hang into my faith, because we're going through very difficult times. There's lots of confusion in the church and confusion everywhere. And as our lady said, we've got to hold tight to our beliefs and not let go and not listen to the rubbish that's going around. So I'll read out a little bit of a message while you're looking at that. Our lady has said in 2002, "Dear children, today I pray for you and with you that the Holy Spirit may help you and increase your faith, so that you may accept even more the messages that I am giving you here in this holy place. Little children," you note that she calls us children all the time, and in Mass today we're talking about children and how important it is to be children. Jesus said we cannot enter God and enter into heaven unless we become like little children. And she says, "Comprehend that it is a time of grace for each of you, and with me, little children, you are secure." So we're secure with her because she's taking us to her Son, not to her. "I desire to lead you all on the way to holiness. Live my messages and put into life every word that I am giving you. May they be precious to you because they come from heaven." That's pretty awesome to comprehend that this place is such a holy place and it comes from heaven. And she says, "Thank you for having responded to my call." Well, if you remember Father Chris in that video saying that, talking about the confessions, a lady says, "Thank you for responding to my call." That's what it's about, responding to her call and living the sacraments. Because she said, we must realise that Satan is real. A lot of Catholics today forgot that Satan exists. He's only on a packet of firelighters or something. But he's not. His main purpose is destruction. Destruction of love, which we practice here, peace, faith, family and life. Our Lady gives us 5 weapons that we must use against Satan. And what are they? She calls them the 5 stones. And they are prayer with the heart, with the rosary. Fasting, something I find very difficult. I try and I endeavour each time. Reading the Bible and placing the Bible in a particular place in your home where it can be seen. Monthly confessions, Our Lady calls upon that all the time. And Holy Communion, which means the Holy Mass and receiving Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament. And now here, this was a great experience in Medjigore, quite overwhelming to see this. This statue, this bronze statue, is called the Risen Christ, as you see. It's bronze, and roughly about 10 years ago, I think, don't quote me on that, roughly about 10 years ago, it started weeping from the knee. And when it did that, the people became pretty excited. And so the Franciscans decided they needed to check this out for leaks of one thing or another. And they found nothing at all. But what they did find with their scientific tests, and this is all housed in the Franciscans' headquarters in Medjigore, and documented that the drips of water that come out of the side of the knee are those of tears, human tears. That's what the analysis is. And that can be found out and checked out at any time. And so everybody, when you visit it, you go up there, and it's quite awesome to do, because you stand there on that little stool like that young lady there is doing, which I've done myself, and you can get these cloths. They're really nice. I've got a few at home, and you wipe them on the tear, and then you watch it dry it up. You can see the polishing because there's so many pilgrims polishing it, and then you wait for a moment, and then you see it weep again. And that has been constantly doing that for some time, around 10 years, I think. Awesome, just absolutely awesome.
Doing it in 2010.
No, I think it's about, was it doing it then? Well, Lil's been there before me. You've been there too. You would have experienced that. You didn't? Can I add in relation to that is, because I went with a group on a pilgrimage through O'Connell Travels. I'll leave some stuff around if I've got it with me. Because I went with a group, mainly because I was afraid of being on my own and wouldn't know what to do when I went overseas, because it was the first time, you're able to be guided like with a guide like I was, and you can get taken to particular spots. There is a downside, you don't have a lot of free time, and that can be a bit of a hindrance at times. But for me, for an old fart for me, it was great to be with my sister and feel secure and go on a pilgrimage with a group of people, so I felt safe and had know what to do. And then you get to see these different things because they know the guide knows where everything is. This is Divine Mercy Sunday, and a few of us are heading off, or most of us, on the bus to go to a church. Well, I can't pronounce the name of the place for the likes of me now, and I didn't write it down. But you go on a bus for about half an hour, and when you get out to the village where the Divine Mercy Church is, it's a tiny little, beautiful little church. You go down on a coach, and I'm sure some of you, even Father might have been overseas on coaches, I don't know, where you go down very steep roads and you wonder how the bus driver's going to get down there. Well, that's what it was like. It was quite full. My sister was hanging on and she had a bit of a panic attack. It was, we got down there and we ended up in the Divine Mercy Church. You probably noticed, those that you know about Divine Mercy, that's an icon. Most of the Divine Mercy pictures, which Sister Faustina was asked to get painted, and they were done, there was several different ones made. But that one represents the most original one that was made, because that's where Christ's hands were when she was first asked to have this picture painted. But it is an icon. So I was graced to have Divine Mercy Sunday in that village. Over in the corner there you can see a statue of Pope John Paul II and Sister Faustina, the saint, both saints now. We're actually walking around to kiss some relics of Pope John Paul II's and Saint Sister Faustina's. That was a very special day. There's a clip coming up shortly of the main street of Medjigore where there's a lot of shops and things. Where you can buy your trinkets and your holy things, like piety shops. There's lots of rosaries and that.
Oh, yeah.
But one of the things, I'm saying this because one of the things I experienced was when we're at the village where that Divine Mercy Church is, and it's a tiny little place in a canyon. It's right in a canyon. And it's very poor, a very humble place. And outside there was little stalls with rosary beads and statues and different things. And they were the gypsies. There's a lot of gypsies there selling stuff. And you get warned, be careful, keep your bags with you, watch this. You know, they're selling lovely rosary beads and stuff, but don't get taken. So you had to be a bit sharp. And I said that, I'm saying that because in the village of Medjigore, when we went into the shops, the particular shop that this next clip that's going to come up is, they don't bother you. The people are the parishioners, they run the shops, some of them, and they're selling the things, and they'll sit down in a corner having a cuppa, and you could be walking around lifting everything you like, but you don't, because they just tell you to get on with it, find out what you want, then come and wake us up or come and see us. And that's a really wonderful feeling to know that, you know, they're able to do that. We were able to do it. See if I can get this to go. The lady with the light blue is my sister, and the lady in the grey is a friend she got to know. She's from Campbellfield in Melbourne. Her husband's actually a high, I think he calls a high judge or court judge or something.
Hey, you two.
That's Sam. That must be two and they open up.
When we left Australia and ended up in Rome, we went straight to Assisi. Now, I haven't got a lot of stuff on here of Assisi at all. And then we travelled to, I think it's called Avereto, Sue, is Avereto, and that's where the Eucharistic miracle is. I've got stuff on my phone, but I didn't have time to get all that on. That was very special. We spent 2 days there on the pilgrimage, and then went from the 2 days from Assisi straight to Medjigore. So we spent 8 days in Medjigore, and then headed back to Rome, where we were supposed to spend 4 days, which some did. So we got back to Rome, and we were visiting a church in the morning. It's one where the cross of part of the cross of Christ is kept, with Saint Helen, or Saint Helen's mother, brought over to Rome many thousands of years ago. And I took sick in that church. I was standing there photographing the items in the church. I got very cold and it went very dark and black, and I walked outside to the sunshine and spent the next 4 days isolated in the hotel at Rome. So I never got to visit the Vatican or to do much in Rome at all. And then 1 or 2 others went down sick. Unfortunately, that was that. But I did get to Assisi. There's no pictures on here of Assisi itself. This is at the bottom of the hill. And this church here inside the basilica is the church that St. Francis built himself way back all those years ago. And they built the basilica over his church. That's outside. You can see that beautiful statue of Our Lady on top. And this is inside the basilica. and that's inside the little church. That one there, and that's the actual church. You can see the size of it by my sister standing there. So that whole building is inside that other big beautiful building. I think that's a pretty good feat of engineering. So that was a wonderful experience. St. Francis is one of my favourite saints because I like animals and gardening and things. So that was very special to experience that. That's just an overview of O'Connell Travel World, the people that I travelled with. And I'll just leave that up for now because we're going to have a cup of tea if anybody wants to write that number down if they're interested in pilgrimages or take a photograph of it. That's who you can contact. So you can contact them.